First episode opens on Joel and Ellie, exactly where we left them. She makes him swear that everything he told her about the fireflies at the hospital in Salt Lake City is true, and he lies to her and says it is. Okay, she says, and after a heavy moment, they continue on their way. Next, we're with a group of teens standing by some firefly graves. They're talking about the assault on the hospital. It seems like they're the only fireflies left at their location. They talk about heading towards Seattle, where someone named Isaac will take them in. Not until we find Joel, says one of the women, Abby, who's standing a bit apart from the others. It's been 3 days since Joel took Ellie from the hospital, and Abby is angry and sad and ready for retribution. It's implied she lost someone in the attack, but we don't know who. One of the guys, Owen, points out that they don't know how or where to find Joel, and they don't have many resources. But when they do, he promises they'll help her find and kill him. Slowly, she adds, tears in her eyes. When we kill him slowly. 5 years later, it seems like Ellie is fighting for her life in a barn against a guy much bigger than she is. Turns out, they're just training. And even though he's winning, she's certainly developed some skills. She eventually gets his arm behind him and twists so hard he taps out. The practice is run by Jesse. When he mentions that he had her opponent pull his punches because he didn't want her to get knocked out and make Joel angry, she bristles. They talk about how they'll all be at a community event that night, though she very much doesn't want to, and then she steps out into the bustling Jackson, Wyoming. The place has expanded in footprint and population since the last time we saw it, and now Joel, older and grayer, is the foreman of a work crew. He's tinkering with some breakers inside when he looks up and says, "Hey, kiddo." As much as we all want it to be Ellie, it's not. Instead, it's Dina, a young and plucky member of his crew who charms him by asking him to show her what he's working on. She also happens to be Ellie's best friend. They talk about how Ellie is mad at him. He chalks it up to normal dad and adolescent daughter static. "I can't hold myself responsible for another person's emotional state," he finishes, which gives Dina license to tease him about being in therapy. Meanwhile, Ellie and Tommy are practicing shooting on a snowy ridge, which is going well until Tommy tells her that he's taking her off patrol and making her work the fence because Joel is worried that she's getting a little reckless when she's out and about. She reasons that there's no need to be so worried about her getting bit because she's immune. He quickly hushes her, saying, "You know we don't talk about that." Still, she strong-arms him into going against Joel's advice, and he allows her to join that evening's patrol as long as she listens to her captain's commands. Joel and Maria are discussing city planning. They can't build quick enough to keep up with the population influx, and he grumbles that the town's council should stop letting everyone in. "You've got to look after your own first, or you're no good to anyone," he says. His grousing is interrupted by some very cute uncle moments with Maria and Tommy's son, Benji. Then Joel takes off just as Tommy gets back. "Joel," Maria says firmly but not meanly as he goes, "you were a refugee." Joel had to go, we learn, because he has an appointment with Gail, his psychotherapist. He pays her in marijuana, and they briefly discuss how it's Gail's first birthday in 41 years without her husband, Eugene. Then the session begins, and it's all about Ellie. The teen is living in the garage at Joel's, and she barely talks to him, which bothers him immensely. "See, Dina understands me, like she's my kid or something." "But she's not," he says. "Neither is Ellie," Gail points out. Then, and here's where it becomes clear that Gail's a little drunk, she starts to berate Joel for being stuck in his problem with Ellie and lying in therapy. "You are definitely leaving something out," she says. She goes on to say that there's something she wants to say, but it scares her to do so. Still, you can't heal something unless you're brave enough to say it out loud. So she gathers her courage and confesses that she hates Joel because he shot and killed her husband. "And yes, I know you had no choice. I know I should forgive you," she adds. But she says she can't because of how you did it. "Say the thing you're afraid to say," she urges him, "and I promise I will help." He's got tears in his eyes, and he's literally vibrating with the words that are trapped in his throat. "What did you do?" Gail prods. "I saved her. is all he says as he stands and leaves. Ellie is cleaning her gun and listening to music when there's a knock on her door. It's Dina, who's come to pick her up for their shared patrol. They're definitely friends, but there seems to be something more on Ellie's part. She's super nervous as Dina comes in close and helps her adjust her holster. The girls join 3 other riders on a recon ride, where Ellie and Dina hang back and chat about the New Year's Eve dance that night. We learn that Ellie is a lesbian. Dina and Jesse recently broke up, and Ellie has a crush on someone she won't name. The conversation is interrupted by the group coming across some blood in the snow. It looks like some infected took down a bear and are hiding out in an old grocery store. Dina and Ellie volunteer to go inside, and they have a very pantomime about how they're going to proceed. Then Ellie takes down an infected. She then falls through the rotting floor, and while she's waiting for Dina to find a way down to help her out, Ellie encounters a female infected that seems to have the ability to fight strategically instead of just by brute force. And though Ellie eventually dispatches her, the infected takes a bite of Ellie's belly first. Ellie hides the nip from Dina, and then they report what they've seen to the council before Ellie heads home for a little standing self-surgery before the big dance. If you hadn't guessed, Ellie's crush is on Dina. She made a bad pun while they were on patrol. That's Ellie's love language. Joel swings by the garage to awkwardly ask if Ellie is going to the dance. He does that dad thing where he looks for problems to solve to show his love, and finds one in her guitar, which he says he'll restring and get back to her the next day. Dina is wheeling around on the dance floor, high and happy, when Ellie gets there. She brings Ellie onto the floor just as a slow song is starting up, and though their interaction starts off jokey, pretty soon Dina is pulling Ellie closer to her. Ellie says that the guys in the room are staring at Dina, and Ellie says she's no threat. "Oh, Ellie," Dina breathes, "I think they should be terrified of you." And then the ladies kiss for the first time. "Hey," some gruff voice behind them says, and I see it's Tucker. He's mad the girls are kissing, and he hurls a gay slur at them. Ellie rounds on him, ready for a fight, but she barely takes a step before Joel enters from the left and shoves Tucker to the ground. Joel turns to Ellie to see if she's okay. She's not, but not in the way he thinks. "What is wrong with you?" she yells, so angry. "I don't need your fucking help." It hurts him, but he just says, "Right," and leaves. When she comes home that night, he's sitting on the porch, guitar in hand. She says nothing and goes inside. Meanwhile, in some of the pipes running under the town, new tendrils of cordyceps raise their ugly little spindles. And outside the city's walls, Abby and her friends approach under cover of night. The episode opens as alarms are going off at the Firefly Hospital in Salt Lake City. The place seems abandoned, except for 2 versions of Abby. One who walks down the hallway with a gun, the other who warns the first not to go into the operating room because he's dead and his brains are on the floor. The gun-toting one forges ahead anyway, as the one who stays behind cries in the hallway. We're obviously in one of Abby's dreams, which ends abruptly when she wakes up in a sleeping bag on the floor of a ski lodge overlooking Jackson. She and her friends realize that Jackson is much larger than any of them thought it would be. They're daunted by the gates, patrols, guards, and dogs, and by having no idea where Joel is in the expansive community. Abby is long on anger, short on actual plans. As they talk, it's clear that she's promised her friends that they won't have to hurt anyone in her quest to find Joel. Eventually, Owen, the tall guy with a beard, says he'll work on a strategy. And after Abby goes out on patrol, he admits to the others that his only intention is to get Abby to turn back. Because if we don't, the only people getting killed here are us. In Jackson, Jesse wakes Ellie for patrol. They talk about how he and Dina have been broken up for a week, and how a patrol the night before found a bunch of infected hiding under a pile of frozen dead shroom people. Ellie tells him that she was planning on going on patrol with Joel, which strikes Jesse as odd, given that she's been avoiding her angry dad. She admits that she knows that things seem bad between them, but that's because their relationship is complicated and unknowable to outsiders. Jesse then informs her that she can't patrol with Joel because he already left with Dina. He wanted to let Ellie sleep. They swing by Tommy's town briefing. He's running through emergency protocol and stay just long enough to grab sandwiches and listen to Seth stumble through an apology for his behavior at the dance the night before. As she and Jesse leave, Ellie notices a storm on its way, but Jesse thinks the weather will stay up in the mountains. That turns out not to be the case. Though Tommy radios for all of the patrols to return, Jesse answers that they're too far out and will hole up in a spot he knows until the snow passes. Jesse brings Ellie and their horses to a 7-Eleven full of weed, where Gail's husband, Eugene, grew his pot. Eugene and Jesse were patrol partners, so he knew him well. Eugene also was a former Firefly who quit in 2010 because he was tired of killing people. Though they talk about how Joel had to put him down, we don't learn much more there. Back to Abby, who spotted 2 people on horseback and starts to pursue them. The snow is really picking up as she slides down a major hillside and lands in a field full of frozen infected, which slowly gives way to an uprising of live infected that pop up from underground and, en masse, chase her. Abby is able to hustle her way to a building where she's able to get a chain link fence between her and the fungal undead, and it doesn't do her much good. The combined force of the infected against the fence pushes it over, so she's essentially crawling for her life in a tunnel made of Home Depot's finest. One infected gets through and is on top of her when a gunshot to the head takes it out. As a dazed Abby stands, a man out of frame yells, "Give me your hand!" It's Joel, and he tells her to run. As Dina approaches and calls for Joel, Abby realizes that the man she's been hunting just saved her life. But the danger isn't over. There are still a lot of infected very nearby, and when Joel and Dina struggle to form a plan, Abby suggests that they all go to her friends at the house halfway up the mountain. So they do. Right around then, Ellie overhears Tommy freaking out a little on the radio, wondering why his brother and Dina are the only patrol that hasn't checked in. She instantly assumes the worst and runs out into the snow, Jesse close behind her. The tendrils of cordyceps that have snaked their way into the pipes underneath Jackson would like a word. When a worker on a crew within the town's walls breaks open a pipe, he realizes that there are live vines inside. Out where Joel, Dina, and Abby are riding for their lives, even more infected surface from underground. Without warning, and like lemmings, the undead break away from chasing the trio and redirect themselves toward Jackson. The lookout on the wall sees a sea of infected careening toward the gates. He sounds the alarm, which throws everyone into action. Tommy and Maria share a kiss before he rides out onto the main street, yelling for everyone to head for the roofs. Then he presides over the counterattack, which involves dousing the infected horde with flammable liquid, then setting them on fire. Eventually, a growling bloater breaks through the wall, clearing a path for a mass entrance. Tommy makes a stand with a bunch of other men, while Maria and the other sniper run to higher ground. Tommy wields a flamethrower as the infected advance, and some of his fellow guards freak out and run. People are getting bit. Bodies are all over the place. It's carnage, and it looks like it's going to get even worse when Tommy lures the bloater into a blocked-off alley and then realizes that his gas tank is getting lower, and the bloater doesn't seem to be losing steam. Tommy is literally backed into a corner and likely thinking it's the end when the creature lunges for him, but winds up collapsing and dying before he can get there. Tommy smartly unstraps his now useless weapon and flees. Abby's friends are looking for her, and they help bring her, Joel and Dina, inside. Dina is a little worse for wear. She has frostbite on her hands, and she's acting a little sluggish, but she still notes a backpack with a WLF patch on it. Joel wants to go right back out. He can see what's happening at Jackson. But then Abby introduces him to the rest of her group, and the vibe changes in an instant. Joel is so preoccupied with trying to make contact on the radio that he doesn't notice when Abby's friend Manny puts a gun to his head. As the group disarms Joel and Dina, he guesses that they're fireflies. Mel injects Dina with a sedative she promises will only put her to sleep for an hour. Then Abby turns to Joel, who has his hands up. She says they'll let Dina live if he tells the truth. "Where was the last place you saw the fireflies?" He says Salt Lake City. At least you're honest, she replies. But Jackson is on fire and Joel is watching it happen, and he has no patience for any of this. I saved your life, he says gruffly. What life? She asks, shooting him in the leg. He slams to the ground, crying out in pain, and Abby orders him tourniqueted so he doesn't bleed out while she continues her monologue. She keeps talking about how he killed 18 soldiers and 1 doctor. That doctor was my dad. Guess you probably already figured. The nurses said you barely even looked at him as you pulled the trigger. But his response angers her greatly, and she grabs a golf club from a bag in the corner and comes at him. She hits his busted leg over and over. Her friends exchange glances. It gets to a point where Abby is primal screaming as she punches Joel over and over, his face looking more like a side of beef with every blow. Ellie follows horse tracks to the lodge and gets inside, approaching the group with her gun drawn when she hears the screaming. But the weapon gets knocked out of her hand, and the others pin her down on the ground, where she can see that Joel is slowly leaving us. His hand twitches. It's not clear how much he can see her through his mangled face. But when she repeatedly begs him to get up, he summons everything he's got and tries. He can't do it. And then Abby picks up the golf club, which now has a sharpened end. Ellie begs her not to do it, but Abby doesn't care. She shoves the metal stick into Joel's neck, and all the sound drops out as Ellie watches her surrogate dad die. He's gone, and they had unfinished emotional business, and she loves him, but maybe hasn't told him lately, and that's that. When Ellie comes back to herself, she screams that she's going to kill everyone. But then Manny kicks her in the stomach, silencing her, and Abby and her friends leave. Ellie belly crawls over to Joel, sobbing as she takes his hand. She rips the shiv out of his neck, throws her arm over him, and puts her face very close to his. Back in Jackson, Tommy and Maria survive the infected onslaught, but the town is in pieces. Tommy nearly collapses, sobbing, when he realizes his wife is alive. Outside what's left of the gates, Jesse rides up to the lodge. Later, as Through the Valley plays, Ellie rides behind him, Dina on her horse, while they drag Joel's wrapped body back to Jackson. Third episode starts outside Jackson's walls. The bodies of the infected horde are still smoldering. Inside, a woman is preparing Joel's body for burial when Tommy enters the room and takes over. He lifts the sheet over the body to see Joel's face. The angle doesn't show us anything, and then gets to work cleaning his brother's body with a rag. He pauses when he sees the broken watch. "Give Sarah my love," Tommy whispers. As the camera pulls back, we see a lot more bodies laid out in the morgue. At the overrun hospital, Ellie comes back to consciousness, remembers what happened, and screams as she sobs. The staff sedates her. 3 months later, Jackson is rebuilding. Ellie is physically healed, but the hospital won't release her until she talks to Gail. "Yeah, I miss him. He meant a lot to me," the teen says. It's the truth, but she says it too quickly and easily, and Gail knows she's just repeating what's necessary in order to be discharged. Ellie says she didn't talk to Joel when she saw him on the porch after their New Year's fight. But she asserts that your final moment with someone doesn't define your whole relationship. She also pretends not to know what Joel meant when Gail mentions his "I saved her" comment from therapy. "Man, I wish I could have let him off the hook for whatever it was he was talking about," she says. Gail gives her some major side-eye, but authorizes her release anyway. At Joel and Ellie's house, mourners have left notes and flowers at the fence. The house feels so empty as Ellie roams around it. She takes his gun and puts it in her waistband, but is brought up short when she turns and sees his clothes hanging in his closet. She cries as she gently touches a sleeve, then cries harder as she buries her face in the cloth. Downstairs, Dina enters the house and calls for her. Ellie quickly stops her tears and dries her eyes. "Dina brought cookies as a peace offering because I'm about to make you angry." Though she visited Ellie a bunch of times during her convalescence, she lied about not being able to identify Joel's attackers. "I know most of their names, and I know where they're from," she admits. And Dina was right. Ellie is mad. "You cost us time. You let them get away," she says. But Dina reality checks her. A lot of other people died, and no one, including Ellie, was in any kind of shape to form a posse. Second, because she knows where Abby and Co. are heading, maybe let them get there first. She's near tears as she reminds Ellie, I loved him too, you know. Ellie softens and takes a bite of a cookie, a sign of a truce. So, here's what Dina knows. In addition to Abby, there's Manny, Owen, Nora, and another woman, whom we know as Mel. One of them had a patch on their backpack that said WLF, which reminds Dina of a group Eugene once told her about, the Seattle-based Washington Liberation Front, a regional group fighting Fedra. Dina hasn't mentioned any of this to anyone else. So, she asks her friend, now what? They share the intel with Tommy, who, surprisingly to Ellie, hesitates. She argues that, if the situation were reversed, Joel would be halfway to Seattle before the sun came up. He agrees that would be the case, if Tommy needed saving. But when we lost people, no, it would just break him like it was his fault. I saw that time and time again. He counsels Ellie to bring the matter to the town council, and he promises he'll back her. Come here, he says, pulling Ellie to him in a hug. She obliges him, but after a moment puts her arm around him and squeezes back. Then he lets her know that they buried everyone 10 miles south out of town. If you want to visit him. She nods. When we're on our way to Seattle, she says. Somewhere else in the woods, a group of people are traveling on foot. All the men have shaved heads and all the women's hair is braided. They all wear clothing with a rudimentary fish symbol drawn on it and carry hammers. Everyone, even the children, have scars from where the corners of their mouths have been slit up into their cheeks. One of the men walks alongside his young daughter, who wonders why she can't just keep them safe. The prophet? She's been dead 10 years, he says. He adds that the distance they're putting between themselves and war is going to keep her safer. Then, someone at the head of the group whistles an alarm that has everyone diving into the brush to take cover. Demons, the little girl whispers as they hide. Wolves, her father replies. On the day of the town meeting, the council and the rest of Jackson considers Ellie's request to send a 16-person team to take down Abby. One woman argues that we are too hurt and it is too soon. Another says that they need to have mercy to separate themselves from the raiders and murderers, a sentiment that angers Seth. Grow up, you idiots, he roars as Ellie looks on, surprised but pleased. They will come back. They'll come back because we didn't make them pay. And when they come back, they will be laughing, and you'll all deserve it, bunch of goddamned victims. Ellie is the last person to make her case. Per Jesse's advice, she wrote her thoughts down ahead of time, so she reads them to the crowd. She swears her motive is not revenge, but justice. I am asking you, please, do it for us, she says, tears in her eyes. It's moving, but not enough to sway the council, which votes 8-3 against going. But does Ellie care? She does not. She's preparing to head out on her own when Dina knocks on the garage door later that night. I'm just going to bed, Ellie calls out. No, I don't think that is where you're going, her friend Riley notes. Once Ellie lets her in, Dina pokes quick and efficient holes in her plan to get Abby. No clear route, no medical supplies, etc. Thankfully, Dina has made a sound plan and enlisted the help of someone who can get them supplies. That guy turns out to be Seth, who even trades his gun for Ellie's before seeing the ladies on their way. At sunrise, Ellie stops at Joel's grave and puts some coffee beans on it before heading on her way. Dina and Ellie share a horse, Shimmer, as they continue toward Seattle. One night, they make camp under an outcropping just as rain starts to pour down. They're about to go to sleep when Dina brings up their kiss at the dance. Ellie quickly says it didn't mean anything, given how high Dina was at the time, but Dina wants her to rate it anyway. Ellie gives it a 6 out of 10. We learn that Dina and Jesse have already gotten back together, and things are a little awkward as Dina turns off the light. But then she adds, Ellie, I wasn't that high, before she falls asleep. When they're on a trail about 10 miles outside of Seattle, the pair come across a dead member of the group we saw earlier. He's wearing the fish coat and has gunshots in his back. Dina investigates a little deeper into the trees, runs back, and then throws up. Ellie goes to see what made Dina so ill and finds the entire group we saw earlier dead and rotting, even the kids. Ellie immediately suspects Abby and her crew are behind the violence. As they approach the city, Dina and Ellie guess that there probably aren't that many members of the WLF, or Wolves. Otherwise, wouldn't people be shooting at them as they get closer to Seattle? But they don't know what we do. The Wolves are a highly militarized group with lookouts, tanks, and a large infantry that's marching through the city. Ellie and Dina are outnumbered in the extreme. Fourth episode begins with a flashback to the Seattle quarantine zone, circa 2018. In the back of a Fedra transport, a soldier tells a gross and violent story for laughs. He talks about some voters disseminating information. He thought they were Western Liberation Front, but instead they were some religious group. Another soldier asks why they refer to the citizens as voters. And a serious-looking man called Sarge in the corner clarifies that the term is a derogatory one that mocks how Fedra took away people's right to vote. His tone implies he disapproves of the other soldier's jocularity, and the laughter abruptly stops after he speaks. The vehicle approaches a blockade. There are a lot of people outside on the street. Sarge says he's going to go talk to the people and instructs the other soldiers not to lock and load. Then he orders the soldier who asked about the voters term to come with him and learn something. A woman named Hanrahan comes up to Sarge and asks if his name is Isaac. It is. Once they've established that, Isaac throws a lit grenade into the back of the transport, which is still full of Fedra soldiers, and locks the door. It goes off. He shoots the driver when he tries to escape. Then Isaac and Hanrahan shake hands. "Welcome to the fight," she says. Isaac turns to the younger soldier, who now is the only other survivor from his group. "Now make your choice," the older man demands. 11 years later, in the present, Dina and Ellie are poking about in the remains of a drugstore. They're in separate rooms, so Ellie isn't there when Dina finds and enters something. We can't see what it is, and yells that she's going to pee, and she'll meet her outside. Ellie notices something is off about her friend when Dina comes out and climbs up on Shimmer with her, but Dina shrugs it off. They meander through Capitol Hill, musing about how they thought Seattle had been bombed, but this part is still intact. They arrive at the area we saw in the flashback, which is now covered with long rotten corpses. The girls see the Fedra bodies inside the transport and guess that the two groups were fighting each other. Then Dina uses her binoculars to look around and finds WLF painted on a satellite dish on top of a tall building. Ellie, unsurprisingly, is ready to charge in first, make plans later, but Dina convinces her to wait until dark and approach on foot. While they're killing time, they hole up in a music shop. It's as ravaged as the rest of the city is, but in a pretty way. Lots of plants growing in and a giant, sunny hole where windows used to be. Ellie ventures upstairs and finds a guitar that, by virtue of being sealed up in a case, is in very good condition. She tunes it and starts playing Take On Me, though she pauses when she sees Dina at the top of the stairs. "Go on," Dina whispers, so she does. Ellie's performance is quiet and sweet. Dina, beaming, sits cross-legged on the floor in front of her, eyes full of tears. When Ellie finishes, Dina wipes her face and compliments her friend, who credits all those lessons from Joel. Dina smiles. "He taught you well." Ellie agrees that he did. Now for something completely different and totally disturbing. In an industrial kitchen elsewhere in Seattle, Isaac lights a stove's burner and talks to someone out of frame about how in the pre-cordyceps times he loved cooking and used to dream about owning a fancy saucepan. "And I was right, just now how I planned. The strange benefits of the apocalypse," he says, heating a pan that we quickly realize is going to be used in an interrogation. A naked, badly beaten, and bald man is chained to a wall in the kitchen. He appears to be a member of the Seraphites, the religious group we saw walking in the woods in the previous episode. As the man prays, Isaac mocks him, calling him and his fellow believers scars. Isaac wants to know where they're attacking next, but the man won't spill. So Isaac has the man hold out his hand, and Isaac places the hot pan directly on it. The man screams so loudly and awfully that a guard outside blanches. Another man tells him to chill, because Isaac knows what he's doing. As the prisoner cradles his mangled hand, he repeatedly chants, "She watches over me, she fills my soul," to himself. Isaac asks if she also told the man to kill children. They argue about who broke the truce between their two factions, but the man will not give Isaac what he wants. He taunts Isaac that, despite having better resources, the wolves are going to lose. Every day, one of your wolves comes to see the truth and takes her into their heart, and none of us ever leave to become a wolf. This angers Isaac greatly, and he reaches for the pan once more. But the man doesn't flinch and merely holds out his hand before being asked. Instead, Isaac shoots and kills him. Good guy, got what he deserved, says the soldier whom we hadn't seen before, and we realize it's the younger guy from the flashback, the one Isaac saved from his colleague's fate. Night falls. Ellie and Dina make their way into the WLF building and quickly realize they've stumbled upon the scene of a massacre. There are a bunch of dead bodies, a few hanging from the ceiling, disemboweled, with their hands bound. Dina immediately pukes. Feel her love, and the fish symbol is scrawled on a wall, leading the girls to realize that the group they saw in the woods are responsible for the killings. All of the carnage is incredibly fresh, as we learn when WLF soldiers run in and Ellie and Dina quickly hide. The soldiers are looking to kill any Seraphites they find, despite Isaac's orders to keep them alive for questioning, and it's not long before one discovers Ellie. She jumps on him and chokes him, ultimately killing him as Dina shoots a second soldier who runs to his aid. Dina and Ellie escape into the pouring rain outside, winding up in an old transit tunnel. The WLF know where they are and toss lit flares into the tunnels, which rile up all the infected that are creeping around down there. The clickers chase Ellie and Dina until the pair drops into a subway car full of skeletons and the infected follow them. The undead rock the car and break through the glass, and it's looking really bad until the women open an emergency exit in the roof. Apparently, dead men can't jump, because once Ellie boosts Dina up, then Dina pulls Ellie out. They are able to get away. Barely. When Ellie and Dina get stuck in some turnstiles that won't move, a clicker is all up in Dina's business and getting ever closer. So Ellie shoves her arm between the creature and her friend and shoots the infected as it's biting her. She saves Dina's life, but Dina is incredibly freaked out as she looks at the bloody gash on Ellie's arm. They get back to the concert hall where they're holing up, and Ellie turns around from barring the door to find Dina crying and holding a gun on her. "I would die for you, I would," Ellie says, "but that is not what just happened." It's time to tell Dina the truth. "I am immune. I can't get infected," Ellie says. And when Dina is not convinced, Ellie gets her to agree to hold a gun on her all night long, promising that, "I'm going to wake up just as I am right now." Later, when Ellie is awake and definitively not a mushroom, she shows Dina the bite, which looks incredibly average, and the moment of vulnerability seems to seal something for Dina. "I'm pregnant," she says, crying. Dina drops the lamp she's holding and kisses her. Ellie eagerly reciprocates. They start taking each other's clothes off, and Ellie slips her hands into Dina's pants. Then we cut to the next morning, where they snuggle on the floor. In the morning light, Dina looks at Ellie's old bite. Ellie clarifies that now it's mostly a burn. Dina realizes she doesn't even know if Ellie wants a kid. "I want it with you," Ellie says quietly. The cuteness ends when the WLF radio that Dina stole crackles with some voices. There's fighting, and they hear Nora's name and reason that she'll know where Abby is. Up on the roof, they see bombs going off in the city. That's where they have to go. But Ellie suddenly realizes everything that's at stake and tells Dina she doesn't have to rush into danger with her. "Together," Dina says. Fifth episode begins as Hanrahan is with a bunch of other wolves in a hospital. She's questioning a woman named Elise, who apparently killed some of her own men, including Leon. The fact that she took him, in particular, out seems to be a big deal. We learn that Elise's unit was in charge of securing the building, and everything was fine until they got to the sub-basement. Leon was in charge because he's my best. And when he radioed to report that they'd found cordyceps flourishing on the floors and walls, she told him to keep going. The next time he radioed, not long after, he was struggling to breathe as the fungus took over. "He said, 'It's in the air,'" she reports, clearly upset. She locked the only doors to the building's subterranean levels, and we sealed them in. No one else in the building has gotten sick. Hanrahan thanks Elise for doing what she had to do, permanently and heroically. We owe you a debt. She mentions that only those who need to know about the basements will be informed. And as she goes to leave, she adds, I'm sorry about your son. What we're meant to take away from the exchange, cordyceps is now airborne, and therefore even more communicable than it was before. On Ellie and Dina's day 2 in Seattle, Ellie gets the generator at the theater working, so they have light. Dina uses intel from the radio and a map to try to plot a safe path to the hospital. Ellie tries to help but is rubbish at it, so she leaves the task to Dina, who is smart as fuck. They're so cute and schmoopy. While Ellie is noodling around on an acoustic guitar she finds on the theater's stage, Dina arrives to say she thinks she's figured out what's up. She posits that the wolves are overly confident and the Seraphites are anti-technology, and the ladies should head for a big fucking something that looks like a warehouse on the map. They head out and come across a bunch of Seraphites, dead, under a mural of the prophet that says, "Feel her love." Someone spray-painted "Feel this bitch" underneath. The whole thing would make anyone queasy. And Dina is definitely green, causing Ellie to freak and say that she shouldn't have brought her on the mission. Dina deflects by bringing up that Ellie never asked her about the first person she killed. So she tells the story of how a raider attacked her home when she was 8 and murdered her mother and sister before Dina shot and killed him. Similarly, Joel didn't deserve what was coming to him, she reasons. If the raider had gotten away, I promise you, I would have hunted him down forever. The monologue touches Ellie, who caresses her girlfriend's face. Dina says she'll do whatever Ellie wants, but she wants her to know there's no right answer. If I die, it's on me. It won't be your fault. Then she asks Ellie how she wants to proceed. Keep going, Ellie whispers. After dark, they break into the big effing something, aka a building with the name Membronix on its side. Dina reminds Ellie that shooting people should be a last resort. When Ellie is slightly offended, Dina softens her rebuke by saying she's crazy, but that's what she loves about her. You love me? Ellie asks. Ellie goes to respond in kind, but Dina interrupts with, I know. Inside the building, the pair runs into an intelligent infected, like the one in the supermarket. And when Dina learns that Ellie got bit back then, too, she's not psyched. Soon, more of these sneaky clickers are circling, so Ellie makes Dina go and hide. Ellie's fighting her heart out, but definitely outmatched, but then someone shoots the infected away from her. It's Jesse. Ellie and Dina run, with Jesse providing cover, as they're chased by wolves who've arrived on the scene. The teens race into a nearby park, stymied when they realize that the soldiers haven't followed them in. As they follow the sound of voices, Jesse informs them that he's in Seattle with Tommy, and they found the map the girls left in the theater. But then, they all stop talking, because they've come across a scene in which Seraphites are hanging a wolf and disemboweling him with a scimitar. There's chanting and torches, and then there's some high-pitched whistling, the kind Seraphites use to warn of danger, right before Dina takes an arrow to the thigh. Jesse quickly scoops her up and follows Ellie's instructions to get her out. Ellie hides and manages to elude the bald baddies, and she eventually makes her way to the hospital. Nora, Abby's friend, is cleaning up after stitching a wound at the hospital when she realizes Ellie is behind her with a gun. Nora recognizes her, but claims not to know where Abby is when Ellie demands the information. At first, she pretends to be sympathetic about Joel's death. But then she pivots to say, the little bitch got what he deserved, and throws a tub full of bleach and rags at Ellie's face before she runs. Ellie pursues her, shooting away, and Nora's only escape option is the elevator hatch. Both women wind up in the aforementioned sub-basement. Lev B2 is wallpapered and carpeted with cordyceps, and the spores floating in the air would be beautiful if they weren't also going to turn everyone into disgruntled mushrooms. Ellie sees some victims fused to the wall like Flying Dutchman crew members. They're exhaling clouds of the deadly little particles like they're at a hookah bar. She hears coughing and follows the noise to find Nora slowly succumbing to the spores. You stupid bitch, you killed us both, Nora wheezes. Did I? Ellie muses, causing Nora to realize, "You're her, the immune girl. You're real." Nora wonders if Ellie knows what Joel did. And though Ellie says she doesn't care, the other woman tells her anyway. Joel killed everyone at the hospital in Salt Lake City, including the only man who could make a cure for the infection. That was Abby's father, and Joel shot him in the head, she says, fading but fighting. That's what he did. Ellie regards her. "I know," she says. Ellie puts away her gun and asks again, "Where's Abby?" Nora keels over but still won't give up her friend's location. So Ellie grabs a piece of pipe from the ground nearby. "Where is she?" Nora still won't say. So Ellie starts to hit her, continuing to ask, and Nora keeps refusing to answer. "Where is she?" Ellie yells in an uncontrolled rage as she wails on the dying woman like she's a cut of particularly tough beef. In an abrupt pivot, we end the episode with Ellie waking up in her bed. She's still in her old room from before she moved to the garage, so this is either a dream or a flashback. Then Joel opens the door and says, "Hey, kiddo." Sixth episode begins in 1983. Austin, Texas, a young Tommy freaks out that his father is going to beat him for being involved in some ridiculousness regarding buying pot. Joel reassures his little brother that he'll take the punishment and sends him to his room. When their father comes home, we see he's a cop. The senior Miller is very angry, but he gets 2 beers from the fridge and puts one in front of his older son. He talks about how, when he stole a candy bar as a kid, his father hit him so hard it broke his jaw. "I have hit you, and I have hit Tommy, but never like that. Not even close," he says, tears gathering in his eyes as he monologues about trying to do a little better than his father did. "When it's your turn," he says before he heads back to work, "I hope you do a little better than me." Next thing we know, we're at the bar in Jackson. Seth is working there, and Joel brings a plastic freezer bag full of Legos to trade, which Seth's grandkids will love. We learn that Seth was a cop in the before times, and though it's not immediately clear what Joel is looking for in return, Seth asks him a crucial question. Vanilla or chocolate? Vanilla, it's easier. A resigned Joel says vanilla. At home, Joel is working on a guitar for Ellie. He puts a ton of attention into the work, even engraving a moth into the neck. Just as he's finishing, he hears Tommy yelling for him as he walks a loopy Ellie up to her bedroom. "Painkillers. She's all right," Tommy says Joel, who has immediately clicked into panic mode. Ellie was on kitchen duty by herself when she decided to push her forearm, aka the site of her bite scar from the infected, up against a scalding pot. She futzes with the bandage, which makes the wound hurt more, and her weak cries of pain bring Joel instantly to her side. "Easy, baby girl, easy," he comforts her. Ellie grows sad as she explains that she just wanted to wear short sleeves again, and she's sorry for the trouble she's caused. He hushes her, and she leans up against him as he pulls her close and kisses her head. The next morning, she comes downstairs to find Joel grumbling over a cake that reads, "Happy 15th birthday, Eli." "Let's hope Seth bakes better than he spells," he says as he turns to get knife. And by the time he's turned back, Ellie has already shoved a fistful of cake into her mouth. "He does," she mumbles. "It's really good." Joel then makes her close her eyes while he brings out the guitar. He talks about giving her a lesson later, but she demands a song now. And because it's her birthday, he gets over his initial hesitation and sits down to play Future Days by Pearl Jam. Ellie listens, looking so happy. "Happy birthday, kiddo," he says, and Ellie comes as close to beaming as she is able. A year later, as Joel and Ellie hike through the forest, she lobbies him to finally let her go out on patrol. They arrive in a clearing that unexpectedly has a dinosaur statue, which excites Ellie to no end. She clambers up to the top of the T-Rex's head and sees that there's a museum nearby. They go inside. We learn that Joel found the place a while back, but was saving it for a special day. Her eyes go wide when she sees a model of the solar system. She's shocked that the model actually moves when you crank it. When Ellie wonders aloud what it was like to be up among the stars, Joel asks her, "Would you like to go to space?" Then he ushers her to the Apollo 15 capsule that is part of the museum's collection, a real spacecraft from a 1971 mission to the moon. He encourages her to break a case and pick out a helmet, So she does. Then she climbs into the capsule, and Joel follows her in. But he's not done yet. He hands her a cassette that took a mighty effort to find. She pops it into her portable player, and we hear a recording of a blast-off into space. Ellie closes her eyes and imagines she's there. "Are you okay? Are you kidding me?" She shoots back, all smiled. As they walk home at dusk, Joel remarks, "This is nice. We should do this more." But just then, she stops, and her entire demeanor changes. He notes the abrupt change and wonders if she's okay. But she says yes and starts walking again, and things seem back to normal. When the camera pans over to show us what caught Ellie's attention, we see a cloud of fireflies sparkling in the approaching darkness. A year after that, Seth has worked on his copy editing skills, and the cake that Joel brings home reads, "Happy 17th birthday, Ellie." When he hears giggles from Ellie's room, he busts in and finds her canoodling with Kat, the woman we met on patrol in the first episode. Kat also was tattooing over Ellie's burn. Joel is really angry. He yells once Kat is gone. "Drugs and tattoos and sex and experimenting with girls?" Ellie yells back that it was neither sex nor an experiment, but he dismisses her. That night, she tries to move out to the garage. Joel stops her and they argue some more, but he acknowledges that maybe she should have her own space. He volunteers to fix up the garage for her. Things are awkward between them, but he's trying. Her tattoo is a moth, and he asks why she likes them so much. She mumbles something about it being symbolic. The next day, Joel accosts Gail at the diner for help. She flatly tells him that, in dreams, moths signify death. And as Ellie packs up her room, we see "You have a greater purpose" written among the moths she's doodled. 2 years later, Ellie sits on her bed and practices asking Joel all the questions that have been swirling in her mind for years. How did the same fireflies who spotted us a mile away from the hospital get surprised by an entire group of raiders? And if the raiders could kill all those soldiers in Marlene and you had to carry me the whole time, how did we get away? And if there are dozens of immune people, why hasn't anyone heard of them? She's interrupted by Joel, who's there with her birthday present. He's given the patrol permission to add Ellie to their ranks. She and he patrol together, where he suggests that they spend more time together. Then a call comes in over the radio, and he tries to send Ellie home. She counters that she's not his kid, she's his patrol partner, and she wants to stay. So she does. They find Eugene, Gail's husband, who took down an infected but got bit in the process. Looks like we're about to find out what Gail was talking about in the season premiere. Eugene reasons that they have an hour, so he'd like to go back to the gate surrounding Jackson so he can say goodbye to his wife. Joel gently but firmly says no. Ellie is more sympathetic, reasoning that he's not yet symptomatic, which indicates that they can fulfill his last wish. Joel instructs her to bring the horses down the trail, and he'll walk with Eugene on the way back. At one point, she looks back at her surrogate dad questioningly. "I promise," he says. He breaks that promise. When Joel has Eugene in front of a beautiful vista, the bitten man begs Joel not to shoot him because he needs Gail's comfort as he dies. Joel offers to pass along any last words, and then, though we don't watch, Joel kills him. "Ellie, I had no choice," Joel pleads as they bring Eugene's wrapped body back to town. She's crying, but he can't see her face. She says nothing. When they return to Jackson, Tommy brings Gail to where Eugene is laid out on the ground. Joel tells Gail that her husband was brave, said he loved her, and ended it all himself. "That's not what happened," Ellie says, seething as Gail sobs onto Joel's shoulder. "He begged to see you. He had time. Joel promised to take him to you. He promised us both. Joel shot him in the head." Gail slaps Joel and tells him to get away from her. Joel, who looks stricken by what I'm sure he sees as a betrayal, stares at Ellie. "You swore," she says, then takes off. 9 months later, we're back at the New Year's Eve dance. Only we're watching it from Joel's perspective. Remember how Ellie told Gail she didn't talk to Joel later that night? That was a lie. He's sitting on the porch with her guitar when she comes home. She walks past him without saying anything, which clearly hurts him. But then she comes back and stands next to him on the porch. They both look out into the yard as she says she doesn't want him interfering with her personal or patrol life anymore. He agrees. He asks about Dina, and Ellie quickly says their kiss didn't mean anything. She would be lucky to have you, he says quietly. You lied to me. I think I knew already. I knew this whole time, she continues. So I'm going to give you one last chance. Tell me what happened with the fireflies. If you lie to me again, we're done. He confirms that there were no raiders or other immune people. Could they have made a cure? He nods, his face so close to crumbling. Ellie is crying too, but she wipes her tears away. He nods in confirmation that he killed the doctor and Marlene, but he finds his voice to say, making a cure would have killed you. Ellie sees it differently. Then I was supposed to die, she yells. But if somehow I had a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again, he says. Because you're selfish, she tosses back. Because I love you, he says, in a way you can't understand. Maybe you never will. But if that day should come, if you should ever have one of your own, well then, I hope you do a little better than me. His voice is all high and trembly. He's full on crying. I don't think I can forgive you for this, she says, and he closes his eyes as he waits for the emotional kill shot. It doesn't come. But I would like to try, she finishes, and he quickly looks at her. This is not what he was expecting. And that's all we get of the Joel and Ellie show. In the hour's final scene, we see Ellie return to the theater in Seattle in the rain after having pulverized Nora. 7th episode begins with Dina bleeding copiously from the seraphite arrow through her thigh. She and Jesse are at the theater, where he has had to push the arrow through her leg in order to get it out, when Ellie returns from pulverizing Nora. She finds Dina resting on a lounge in the dressing room. The mom-to-be reassures Ellie that the baby is okay, and then Dina slowly sits up and has Ellie take off her shirt so she can tend to her pretty messed up back. As Ellie reports what happened, it seems like she's in shock. I made her talk. I thought it would be harder to do, but it wasn't, she babbles. It was easy. I just kept hurting her. Ellie adds that Nora only said wheel and wail, and that she didn't kill her. When Dina remarks that maybe Abby's friend got what she deserved, it brings Ellie to the verge of tears. Maybe she didn't, she whispers, telling her girlfriend about Joel's massacre at the hospital in Salt Lake City. This news shakes Dina badly, and things don't get better when Ellie confesses that she didn't know who Abby and her friends were when they arrived in Jackson. But she did know what Joel did. Ellie apologizes, but Dina's entire effect has changed. She just says that they need to return to Jackson. Then she turns on her side and tries to rest. The next day, Jesse and Ellie leave to find Tommy. Dina puts her bracelet on Ellie's wrist for good luck. On the way, Ellie inadvertently lets it slip that Dina is pregnant. He suspected, but she confirms it, and then they take shelter in a garage when it starts to pour. They quickly hide when wolves in their vicinity grab a seraphite, beat and strip him, then drag him away. Ellie wants to intervene, because the seraphite was a kid. But Jesse is vehemently opposed. This is not our war, he says. They make it to the rendezvous point, but Tommy isn't there. While they wait for him, Jesse tells her that he loves Dina, but not the way you do, and that he fell in love with someone in a group of survivors that was headed to New Mexico. When the object of his affection asked him to go with her, he wanted to, but ultimately he stayed because he felt loyalty to Jackson. They're interrupted by a report on the radio. It sounds like the wolves have captured Tommy. But when the pair get to a higher point in order to try to see where Tommy might be, Ellie is distracted by a nearby aquarium, which has a giant Ferris wheel nearby. She realizes that Nora's wheel and wail might mean that Abby is holed up there, so she suddenly decides that maybe Tommy is okay, after all, and that she's going to set off for the aquarium instead. Her choice incenses Jesse, who blurts out that he was one of the Jackson Council members who voted against her mission, because everything you do for you. But she refuses to feel bad, pointing out that his loyalty to one group allows him to be brutal to others. After all, he didn't do anything to stop the wolves harming the seraphite kid. I really hope you make it, is all he says as he walks away. Ellie goes to the waterfront and is able to get a motorboat running, so she sets off for the aquarium. She's capsized by a giant wave, though, so she and the boat wash up on shore where a seraphite child watches her. Before Ellie knows what's going on, there's lots of whistling, and then 2 seraphite adults pick her up and walk her to a noose in the woods. Ellie yells that she's not a wolf and she's not a local, but that doesn't stop them from stringing her up. A woman with a scimitar seems to be in charge, When there's a horn in the distance, the woman yells, "The village! Leave her!" And Ellie crashes to the ground as the bald and braided ones run. After that, when she arrives at the aquarium, Ellie gains entrance to the building via a broken skylight. She creeps up on Owen and Mel, aka the other female member of Abby's group, as they talk about how to get Abby. Once Ellie makes her presence known, she realizes they have a map. Ellie demands that they hand it over. Owen pretends he will but grabs a gun instead. In the process of shooting him first, Ellie hits Mel in the neck. As Mel's jacket falls open, we see that she's pregnant. As her life drains away, she begs Ellie to cut the baby out of her. Mel bleeds out as well as Ellie cries. She's traumatized, like post-steakhouse traumatized, when Tommy and Jesse suddenly appear and lead her out, returning to Dina at the theater. Later, Tommy, Jesse, and Ellie talk about how it seems like Abby will get to live, after all. Tommy wonders if Ellie can make her peace with that. "I guess I will have to," she says. After he steps away, she thanks Jesse for coming back to help her. He teases her a little before adding that if he were out there somewhere, lost and in trouble, "You would set the world on fire to save me." She agrees that she would. Then they're interrupted by a noise from the lobby, and everything gets much worse from here on out. As they run toward the noise, Jesse immediately goes down, taken out by an unseen assailant. Ellie sees that Tommy, too, has been hit and is unconscious. "And that assailant? It's Abby. He killed my friends," she tells Ellie, who corrects her. "No, I did. I didn't meant to." She begs Abby to let them go, but Abby won't hear it. "I let you live," she points out. "I let you live, and you wasted it." And as Ellie yells, "No," Abby shoots. Does her bullet hit its mark? We don't know, because suddenly, we're watching Abby nap on a couch. She's woken by another wolf who lets her know that Isaac wants to talk. As she stands and makes her way outside, we see that they are in a football stadium that has a lot of military-looking hustle and bustle happening. Seattle Day 1. Some on-screen text reads, "Looks like we've arrived at a point of view shift."